come true. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you dare to, oh why can't I? Oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. The dreams that you dare to, why, oh why can't I?
By day, I'm a venture capitalist. On weekends, I love rockets. I love photography. I love rockets. I'm going to talk to you about a hobby that can scale and show you some photos that I've taken over the years with kids like these, kids that hopefully will grow up to love rocketry and eventually become maybe another Richard Branson or Diamandis. My son designed a rocket that became stable, a golf ball rocket. I thought it was quite an interesting experiment in the principles of rocket science, and it flies straight as an arrow. Baking soda and vinegar. Night shots are beautiful, piercing the Big Dipper and the Milky Way. 2 staged rockets with video cameras on them, onboard computers logging their flights, rocket gliders that fly back to Earth. I use RockSim to simulate flights before they go to see if they'll break supersonic or not, and then fly them with onboard computers to verify their performance. But to launch the really big stuff, you go to the middle of nowhere, Black Rock Desert, where dangerous things happen. And the boys get bigger, and the rockets get bigger. And they use motors that literally are used on cruise missile boosters. They rumble the belly and leave photographers in awe watching the spectacle. These rockets use experimental motors like nitrous oxide. They use solid propellant most frequently. It's a strange kind of love. We have a rocketmavericks.com website with my photos. If you want to learn more about this, participate, be a spectator. Mavericks, we had to call it Rocket Mavericks. This one was great. It went to 100,000 feet, but didn't quite. It actually went 11 feet into the solid clay. It became a bunker buster. Drilling down into the clay had to be dug out. Rockets often spiral out of control if you put too much propellant in them. Here was a drag race. At night, you can see what happened in a second. Daytime, we call them land sharks. Sometimes they just explode before your eyes or come down supersonic. To take this shot, what I often do is just go way beyond the pads where none of the other spectators are. And if we can run the video, I'll show you what it took to get this DreamWorks shot.
Yeah!
Nice.
Uh-oh.
This is rare. Here's when they realize the computer's failed. They're yelling deploy.
Shit.
Oh, this is when they realize everything on board has gone haywire.
Ballistic.
Oh, shit.
And I'll just be quiet.
No.
And that's me over there taking photos the whole way. Things often go wrong. Some people watch this event because of a NASCAR-like fascination with things bumping and grinding, burning the parachute as it fell. That was last weekend. This guy went up with supersonic, ripped the fin can off, yard sale in the sky, and a burning metal hunk coming back. These things would drop down from above all through the weekend of rocket launch after rocket launch after rocket launch. It's a cadence you can't quite imagine. And in many ways, I try to capture the mishaps. It's a challenge in photography when these things all take place in a fraction of a second. Why do they do it? It's for things like this. Gene from Alabama drives out there with this rocket that he's built with X-ray sensors, video cameras, festooned with electronics, And he succeeds getting to 100,000 feet, leaving the atmosphere, seeing the thin blue line of space. It is this breathtaking image, success, of course, that motivates us and motivates kids to follow and understand rocket science, to understand the importance of physics and math, and in many ways to sort of have that awe and exploration of the frontiers of the unknown. Thank you.
Sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad. I got sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on.
Finally, someone let me out of my cage. Now, time for me is nothing cause I'm counting no A's. Nah, I couldn't be there. Nah, you shouldn't be scared. I'm good at repairs and I'm under each snare. Intangible, bet you didn't think, so I command you to. Panoramic view, look, I'll make it all manageable. Pick and choose, sit and lose, all you different crews. Chicks and dudes who you think is really kicking tunes. Picture you getting down in a picture tube, like you lit the fuse. You think it's fictional, mystical, maybe spiritual hero who appears in you to clear your view when you're too crazy. Lifeless to those, the definition for what life is. Priceless to you because I put you on the hype shit. You like it? Gun smoke, you're righteous with one toke. You're psychic among no possess you with one go.
I'm happy, I'm feeling glad. I got sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. Ain't happy, I'm feeling glad. I got sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on.
The essence, the basics, without it you make it. Allow me to make this childlike in nature. Rhythm, you have it or you don't, that's a fallacy, I'm in them. Every sprouting tree, every child of peace, every cloud and sea. You see with your eyes, I see destruction and demise. Corruption in the skies from this enterprise. Now I'm sucked into your lives through rust, so not as muscles, but percussion to provide with me as a guide. Y'all can see me now cause you don't see with your eye. You perceive with your mind, that's the end line. So I'ma stick around with Russ and be a mentor. Bust a few rhymes so motherfucker remember what the thought is. I brought all this so you can survive when law is lawless. Feeling sensations that you thought was dead. No squealing, remember that it's all in your head.
I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad. I got sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, not for long. The future is coming on. Ain't happy, I'm feeling glad. I got sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. My future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. My future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. My future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. My future.
From space, our planet appears to be more ocean than Earth. But despite the water covering 71% of the planet's surface, more than half the world's population endures extreme water scarcity for at least 1 month a year. And current estimates predict that by 2040, up to 20 more countries could be experiencing water shortages. Taken together, these bleak statistics raise a startling question. Are we running out of clean water? Well, yes and no. At a planetary scale, Earth can't run out of fresh water thanks to the water cycle, a system that continuously produces and recycles water, morphing it from vapor to liquid to ice as it circulates around the globe. So this isn't really a question of how much water there is, but of how much of it is accessible to us. 97% of Earth's liquid is salt water, too loaded with minerals for humans to drink or use in agriculture. Of the remaining 3% of potentially usable fresh water, more than 2/3 is frozen in ice caps and glaciers. That leaves less than 1% available for sustaining all life on Earth, spread across our planet in rivers, lakes, underground aquifers, ground ice, and permafrost. It's these sources of water that are being rapidly depleted by humans, but slowly replenished by rain and snowfall. And this limited supply isn't distributed evenly around the globe. Diverse climates and geography provide some regions with more rainfall and natural water sources, while other areas have geographic features that make transporting water much more difficult. And supplying the infrastructure and energy it would take to move water across these regions is extremely expensive. In many of these water-poor areas, as well as some with greater access to water, humanity is guzzling up the local water supply faster than it can be replenished. And when more quickly renewed sources can't meet the demand, we start pumping it out of our finite underground reserves. Of Earth's 37 major underground reservoirs, 21 are on track to be irreversibly emptied. So while it's true that our planet isn't actually losing water, we are depleting the water sources we rely on at an unsustainable pace. This might seem surprising. After all, on average, people only drink about 2 liters of water a day. But water plays a hidden role in our daily lives, and in that same 24 hours, most people will actually consume an estimated 3,000 liters of water. In fact, household water, which we use to drink, cook, and clean, accounts for only 3.6% of humanity's water consumption. Another 4.4% goes to the wide range of factories which make the products we buy each day. But the remaining 92% of our water consumption is all spent on a single industry: agriculture. Our farms drain the equivalent of 3.3 billion Olympic-sized swimming pools every year. All of it swallowed up by crops and livestock to feed Earth's growing population. Agriculture currently covers 37% of Earth's land area, posing the biggest threat to our regional water supplies. And yet, it's also a necessity. So how do we limit agriculture's thirst while still feeding those who rely on it? Farmers are already finding ingenious ways to reduce their impact, like using special irrigation techniques to grow more crop per drop and breeding new crops that are less thirsty. Other industries are following suit, adopting production processes that reuse and recycle water. On a personal level, reducing food waste is the first step to reducing water use, since 1/3 of the food that leaves farms is currently wasted or thrown away. You might also want to consider eating less water-intensive foods like shelled nuts and red meat. Adopting a vegetarian lifestyle could reduce up to 1/3 of your water footprint. Our planet may never run out of water, but it doesn't have to for individuals to go thirsty. Solving this local problem requires a global solution, and small day-to-day decisions can affect reservoirs around the world.
It's been 7 hours and 50 days since you took your love away. I go out every night and sleep all day since you took your love away. Since you've been gone, I can do whatever I want. I can see whomever I choose. I can eat my dinner in a fancy restaurant, but nothing, I said nothing can take away these blues, 'cause nothing compares to you. here, like a bird without a song. Nothing can stop these lonely tears from falling. Tell me, baby, where did I go wrong? I could put my arms around every boy I see. They only remind me of you. I went to the doctor and guess what he told me? Guess what he told me? He said, girl, you better try to have fun no matter what you do. But he's a fool, 'cause nothing compares to you. All the flowers that you planted, mama, in the backyard, all died when you went away. I know that living with your baby was sometimes hard, but I'm willing to give it another try. Nothing compares to you. Nothing compares to you. Nothing compares to you.
If we look around us, much of what surrounds us kind of started life as various rocks and sludge buried in the ground in various places in the world. But of course, they don't look like rocks and sludge now. They look like, TV cameras, monitors, annoying radio mics. And so this kind of magical transformation is what I was trying to get at with my project, which became known as the Toaster Project. And it was also inspired by this quote from Douglas Adams. And the situation is from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And the situation it describes is the hero of the book, he's a 20th century man, finds himself alone on a strange planet, populated only by a technologically primitive people. And he kind of assumes that, yes, he'll become these villagers, he'll become their emperor with his, and transform their society with his wonderful command of technology and science and the elements. But of course, realizes that without the rest of human society, he can barely make a sandwich, let alone a toaster. But he didn't have Wikipedia, so I thought, okay, I'll try and make an electric toaster from scratch. And working on the idea that the cheapest electric toaster would also be the simplest to reverse engineer, I went and bought the cheapest toaster I could find, took it home, and was kind of dismayed to discover that inside this object, which I'd bought for just £3.94, there were 400 different bits made out of, 100 plus different materials. I didn't have the rest of my life to do this project. I had, maybe 9 months. So I thought, okay, I'll start with 5. And these were steel, mica, plastic, copper, and nickel. So, starting with steel, how do you make steel? So, I went and knocked on the door of the Rio Tinto Chair of Advanced Mineral Extraction at the Royal School of Mines and said, how do you make steel? And Professor Cilliers was very kind and talked me through it. And my vague rememberings from GCSE science, well, steel comes from iron. So, I phoned up an iron mine and said, hi, I'm trying to make a toaster. Can I come up and get some iron? Unfortunately, when I got there, it emerges Ray. He had misheard me and thought I was coming up because I was trying to make a poster, and so wasn't kind of prepared to take me into the mines. But after some nagging, I got him to do that.
Through his creased limestone, and that was produced by sea creatures 350 million years ago in a nice, warm, sunny atmosphere. When you study geology, you can see what's happened in the past in the world, terrific changes in the earth.
As you can see, they had the Christmas decorations up. And, of course, it wasn't actually a working mine anymore because though Ray was a miner there, the mine had closed and had been reopened as a kind of a tourist attraction because, of course, it can't compete on the scale of operations which are happening in, South America, Australia, wherever. But anyway, I got my suitcase of iron ore and dragged it back to London on the train, and then was faced with the problem, okay, how do you make this rock into components for a toaster? So I went back to Professor Cilliers, and he said, go to the library. So I did, and was looking through the undergraduate textbooks on metallurgy, completely useless for what I was trying to do, because of course they don't actually tell you how to do it if you want to do it yourself, and you don't have like a smelting plant. So I ended up going to the History of Science library and looking at this book. This is the first textbook on metallurgy written in the West, at least. And there you can see that woodcut is basically what I ended up doing. But instead of a bellows, I had a leaf blower. And, that was something that reoccurred throughout the project was, the smaller the scale you want to work on, the further back in time you have to go. And so this is, after a day and about half a night kind of smelting this iron, I dragged out this stuff and it wasn't iron. But luckily, I found a patent online for industrial furnaces that use microwaves, and 30 minutes at full power, and I was able to finish off the process. So my next... the next thing I was trying to get was copper. Again, this mine was once the largest copper mine in the world. It's not anymore, but I found a kind of retired geology professor to take me down, and he said, OK, I'll let you have some water from the mine. And the reason I was interested in getting water is because water which goes through mines becomes kind of acidic and will start picking up, dissolving the minerals from the mine. And a good example of this is the Rio Tinto, which is in Portugal. As you can see, it's got lots and lots of minerals dissolved in it, so many such that it's now just a home for bacteria who really like acidic, toxic conditions. But anyway, the water I dragged back from the Isle of Anglesey, where the mine was, there was enough copper in it such that I could cast the pins of my metal electric plug. So the next thing, I was, off to Scotland to get mica, and mica is a mineral, which is a kind of very good insulator and very good insulating electricity. That's me getting mica. And the last material I'm going to talk about today is plastic. And of course, my toaster had to have a plastic case. Plastic is the defining feature of cheap electrical goods. And so plastic comes from oil. So I phoned up BP and spent a good kind of half an hour trying to convince the PR office at BP that it would be fantastic for them if they flew me to an oil rig and let me have a jug of oil. BP obviously have a bit more on their mind now. But even then, they weren't convinced and said, OK, well, we'll phone you back. Never did. So I looked at other ways of making plastic, and you can actually make plastic from, obviously, oils which come from plants, but also from starches. So this is attempting to make potato starch plastic. And for a while, that was looking really good. I poured it into the mould, which you can see there, which I'd made from a tree trunk. And it was looking good for a while, but I left it outside because you had to leave it outside to dry. And unfortunately, I came back and there were snails kind of eating the unhydrolyzed bits of potato. So kind of out of desperation, I decided that I could think laterally, and geologists have actually christened, well, they're debating whether to christen the age that we're living in. They're debating whether to make it a new geological epoch called the Anthropocene, the age of man. And that's because geologists of the future would kind of see a sharp shift in the strata of rock that is being laid down now. So suddenly it would become kind of radioactive from Chernobyl and the kind of 2,000 or so nuclear bombs that have been set off since 1945. And there'd also be like an extinction event, like fossils would, suddenly disappear. And also, I thought that there would be kind of synthetic polymers, plastics embedded in the rock. So I looked up a plastic, so I decided that I could mine some of this, modern day rock. And I went up to Manchester to visit a place called Axiom Recycling. And they're at the sharp end of what's called the WEEE, which is this European Electrical and Electronic Waste Directive. And that's was brought into force to try and deal with the kind of mountain of stuff that is just being, made and then kind of living for a while in our homes and then going to landfill. But this is...
I was wondering if I could actually mine some brominated flame retardants from myself and put them in my toaster. But
oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear.
So there's a picture of my toaster. That's it without the case on, and there it is on the shelves. Thanks.
I'm told you did plug it in once.
Yeah, I did plug it in. I don't know if you could see, but I was never able to make insulation for the wires. Kew Gardens were insistent that I couldn't come and, hack into their rubber tree. So the wires were uninsulated, so there was kind of 240 volts going through this homemade copper wires, homemade plug. And for about 5 seconds, the toaster toasted, but then, unfortunately, the element kind of melted itself. And... But I considered it a partial success, to be honest. Yeah.
Thomas, thanks.
I've seen the world, done it all, had my cake now. Diamonds brilliant and brilliant now. Hot summer nights, mid-July, when you and I were forever wild. The crazy days, city lights, the way you'd play with me like a child. Will you still love me when I'm no longer young and beautiful? Will you still love me when I got nothing but my aching soul? I know you will, I know you will, summer days, rock and roll, the way you play for me at your show, and all the ways I got to know your pretty face and electric soul. Will you still love me when I'm no longer young and beautiful? Will you still love me when I got nothing but my aching soul? I know you will, I know you will, I know that you will. Will you still love me when I'm no longer beautiful? Dear Lord, when I get to heaven, please let me bring my man. When he comes, tell me that you'll let him in. Father, tell me if you can. All that grace, all that body, all that face makes me wanna party. He's my sun, he makes me shine like diamonds. Will you still love me when I'm no longer young and beautiful? Will you still love me when I got nothing but my aching soul? I know you will, I know you will, I know that you will. Will you still love me when I'm no longer beautiful? Will you still love me when I'm no longer beautiful? Will you still love me when I'm not young and beautiful?
Working in Vienna at the turn of the 20th century, he began his career as a neurologist before pioneering the discipline of psychoanalysis. He proposed that people are motivated by unconscious desires and repressed memories, and their problems can be addressed by making those motivations conscious through talk therapy. His influence towers above that of all other psychologists in the public eye. But was Sigmund Freud right about human nature? And were his methods scientific?
Order, order. Today on the stand we have... Dad?
Ahem, no, Your Honor. This is Dr. Sigmund Freud, one of the most innovative thinkers in the history of psychology, an egomaniac who propagated pseudoscientific theories.
Well, which is it?
He tackled issues medicine refused to address. Freud's private practice treated women who suffered from what was called hysteria at the time, and their complaints hadn't been taken seriously at all. From the women with depression he treated initially to World War I veterans with PTSD, Freud's talking cure worked, and the visibility he gave his patients forced the medical establishment to acknowledge their psychological disorders were real. He certainly didn't help all his patients. Freud was convinced that our behavior is shaped by unconscious urges and repressed memories. He invented baseless, unconscious, or irrational drivers behind the behavior of trauma survivors and caused real harm.
How's that?
He misrepresented some of his most famous case studies, claiming his treatment had cured patients when in fact they had gotten worse. Later therapists, influenced by his theories, coaxed their patients into recovering supposedly repressed memories of childhood abuse that never happened. Lives and families were torn apart. You can't blame Freud for later misapplications of his work. That would be projecting. Plenty of his ideas were harmful without any misapplication. He viewed homosexuality as a developmental glitch. He coined the term penis envy, meaning women are haunted for life by their lack of penises. Freud was a product of his era, Yes, some of the specifics were flawed, but he created a new space for future scientists to explore, investigate, and build upon. Modern therapy techniques that millions of people rely on came out of the work he started with psychoanalysis. And today, everyone knows there's an unconscious. That idea was popularized by Freud. Psychologists today only believe in a cognitive unconscious, the fact that you aren't aware of everything going on at a given moment. Freud took this idea way too far, ascribing deep meaning to everything. He built his theories on scientific ideas that were outdated even in his own time, not just by today's standards. For example, he thought individual psychology is derived from the biological inheritance of events in ancient history. And I mean ancient, like the Ice Age or the killing of Moses. Freud and his closest allies actually believed these prehistorical traumas had ongoing impacts on human psychology. He thought that the phase of cold indifference to sexuality during pubescence was literally an echo of the Ice Age. With fantastical beliefs like these, how can we take him seriously? Any renowned thinker from centuries past has ideas that seem fantastical by today's standards, but we can't discount their influence on this basis. Freud was an innovator, linking ideas across many fields. His concepts have become everyday terms that shape how we understand and talk about our own experiences. The Oedipus complex, ego and id, defense mechanisms, death wishes, all Freud. But Freud didn't present himself as a social theorist. He insisted that his work was scientific.
Are you saying he repressed inconvenient facts?
Freud's theories were unfalsifiable.
Wait, so you're saying he was right?
No, his ideas were framed so that there's no way to empirically verify them. Freud didn't even necessarily believe in the psychoanalysis he was peddling. He was pessimistic about the impact of therapy.
What? I think I need to lie down.
Many of Sigmund Freud's ideas don't hold up to modern science, and his clinical practices don't meet today's ethical standards. At the same time, he sparked a revolution in psychology and society and created a vocabulary for discussing emotion. Freud made his share of mistakes, but is a thinker responsible for how subsequent generations put their ideas to use. Do they deserve the blame, credit, or redemption when we put history on trial?
Swinging in the backyard, pull up in your fast car, whistling my name. Open up a beer and you say get over here and play a video game. I'm in his favorite sundress, watching me get undressed, take that body downtown. I say you the bestest, leaning for a big kiss, put his favorite perfume on, go play a video game. It's you, it's all for you. Everything I do, tell you all the time. Heaven is a place on earth with you. Tell me all the things you wanna do. I heard that you like the bad girls, honey. Is that true? It's better than I ever even knew. They say that the world was built for two, only worth living if somebody is loving you. Baby, now you do. Singing in the old bars, swinging with the old stars, living for the fame. Kissing in the blue dark, playing pool and wild dogs, video games.
You alright? He's alright.
He holds me in his big arms, drunk and I am seeing stars. This is all I think of. Watching all our friends fall in and out of old clothes. This is my idea of fun, playing video games. It's you, it's all for you. Everything I do, I tell you all the time. Heaven is a place on earth with you. Tell me all the things you wanna do. I heard that you like the bad girls, honey. Is that true? It's better than I ever even knew. They say that the world was built for two, only with living if somebody is loving you. And baby, now you do. It's you, it's you, it's all for you. Everything I do, I tell you all the time. Heaven is a place on earth with you. Tell me all the things you wanna do. I heard that you like the bad girls, honey. Is that true? It's better than I ever even knew. They say that the world was built for two, only worth living if somebody is loving you. And baby, now you do. Now you do.
I can't let you in.
This is Yoli. I went to her childcare program that she started out of her home in the community where I grew up. I was in her program when I was 4. Over the years, she served hundreds of children in our community. Her program was so fun. We played outside, we played hide and seek, there was Play-Doh, there were blocks. Yoli would ask us things like, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling angry? She really helped us to make sense of the world. She really focused on communication. It was a mixed-age classroom. There were children that were infants. There were toddlers. The older children learned to lead. The younger children learned from the older children. As it turns out, we were doing incredibly important work in her program. People often think that the real learning starts in kindergarten, but 90% of our brains develop between the ages of 0 and 5. And far too many children don't get access to the type of early learning experiences I had in Yoli's program. Whether that's through a childcare program in a home, a center, a nanny, a caring parent, a grandparent. In fact, 175 million children aged 3 to 6 don't get access at all. In the US, 51% of Americans live in areas called childcare deserts, where there's not enough childcare. And what this shortage does is it leaves parents having to choose between their careers and childcare. Even in places where there's free childcare or public pre-K options, there's not enough spots. So parents are forced to drive across town for options that don't meet their needs. They're forced to wait in these really long wait lists and succumb to lotteries to try to get into programs. And this shortage isn't due to us not trying. In the 70s, we pinned our hopes on television to solve our problems. Today, the touchscreen generation is learning how to count, how to read, using apps and games, but apps and games can't care for our children. Apps and games can't change diapers, can't ensure our children are getting access to the appropriate social emotional growth that they need. And there hasn't been enough money, enough teachers, enough classrooms. We've tried everything. We haven't been able to solve it. So what if we could live in a world where we did have enough childcare, where parents had a multitude of options to choose from in their communities? Maybe the answer is right under our noses. Maybe Yoli was onto something. Our homes. Rather than investing trillions of dollars building new buildings, what if we empowered more people to start childcare programs out of their homes? Based on our data, It costs about $25,000 per spot if you create a commercial space for childcare. That's 25,000 times each child you want to serve in that program, where you can do that for a fraction, a couple $100 if you do it in a home-based program. And we can make it easier for parents to find these programs. Software is great for this. So with software, we can make it easy for folks to start programs, get connected to parents. Decades ago, who would have thought that we would be able to create a software network of drivers, connect them to millions of passengers, and solve the transportation needs or play a role in solving the transportation needs of our fastest growing cities, or take our spare bedrooms and apartments and make them available online and create an industry that competes with the largest hotel chains. So my dream is to create that kind of network, but for home-based childcare, to create a movement where we empower people to start childcare programs out of their homes and play a role in solving the challenges in their communities. These programs could be more affordable, they could be nimble, safe, they could be laboratories of innovation. And I'm one of the entrepreneurs who's working on advancing home-based childcare. And what I'm going to share with you is how I think we can turn that idea into a reality. So first off, when it comes to starting a program, we want to make sure that the program is safe, it's high quality, it's a program parents can trust. This is Christina. Christina started a childcare program out of her home in San Francisco, started with her husband. When she decided to start her program, she had to get registered with the state. She got licensed by the state. They came out and visited her program, made sure she was operating a safe program. She was background checked along with her husband. And if there's any issues that she experiences in her program, any violations, she shares this information with the state, and the state makes it publicly available. To make this work, we got to make sure it's easy for parents to get this information when they're making a decision for their children. Along with this, we need more information about Christina's program. What's her background? What's her philosophy? What are her tuition rates? Who else is in the program? Is she operating a safe program? Is this a program parents can trust? Along with this, what do other parents think about the program who've been enrolled in the program? This is the type of information parents need when they're making this decision for their children. When operating a childcare program, it's not the same as driving a car, making your apartment available online, or delivering groceries. It's really important we ensure that the programs that get created are safe, secure, and allow us to live up to the promise of early childhood education. Lastly, when it comes to starting a childcare program, we need to make it easier for folks to take the leap. There's this big misconception that starting a childcare program out of your home is expensive, and you can barely make a living doing so. But that's not true. The economics vary widely by location, by your home, by your background. It's really similar in terms of, from an economic standpoint, the way real estate works in terms of how rents work in different markets. For example, when Christina started her program, she was able to break even within 3 months of starting her program. And we're seeing folks start programs in studio apartments with 1 to 2 children in the program. And we're seeing a wide variety of different types of folks starting programs. We're seeing grandmothers or former K-12 teachers. We're seeing social workers, artists. We're seeing Montessori teachers who've been in the field for 20 years and realized the opportunity of running their own program. Folks who are into forestry and have master's degrees, former nurses starting fully outdoor programs. Going back to Christina, Christina was a former child therapist, and when she started her program with her husband, she quickly got to a point where she was earning 6 times as much income running her program than she was in her prior career. She was able to move to a single-family home in San Francisco to operate her program. And the big reason why she's able to do this is she's not having to incur the cost of commercial real estate. She's doing this out of her home. And her program is actually more affordable than programs nearby. It's a win-win for her and for the parents. So I want to live in a world where there's more Christinas, where there's more Yolis, where parents don't have to drive across town for programs that don't meet their needs, where parents don't have to drop out of the workforce to ensure their children are getting access to the vital early education our children need. A world where we can walk around our neighborhoods and tour a Spanish immersion program, a fully outdoor program, a science-based program, and make a choice. It's during these early years, children learn to speak, they learn to communicate, they learn teamwork, they learn what it's like to start something and fail and try again. A lot of the skills I use as a CEO today, running my company, these are things I learned before I was 5. These are the moments and experiences that make us who we are and make us human. And I can't think of anything more important than that. Thank you.
My name is Glenn. I'm 25, and I don't know my real last name. It's not uncommon in America. Most black people in this country are walking around with a slave owner's last name. Black history has been systemically erased and altered for centuries. As I give this talk, there are more than 700 Confederate monuments standing nationwide. These were erected to honor Confederate soldiers who fought to maintain slavery, mostly in the South from the 1890s to the 1950s, when Jim Crow laws enforcing racial segregation were in full effect. To this day, black people are forced to confront monuments of slaveholders in our public spaces. These memorials are a physical representation of a system that is actively working to define whose lives matter and whose lives do not. If we are going to disrupt the narrative, we have to start at the origin. Genocide, slavery, and patriarchy started in the Americas with Christopher Columbus. Most people in the United States know about his voyage in 1492. Fewer people know that an estimated 250,000 indigenous Arawaks were wiped out within 2 years of his arrival. Even fewer people know that Columbus admitted in a letter written to Doña Juana de la Torres that 9 and 10-year-old girls were in high demand, and for girls of all ages, a good price must be paid. Yet, New York City's Columbus Circle has had him perched 76 feet high next to Central Park since 1892. I started Movers and Shakers, a nonprofit, to get this statue removed. Movers and Shakers is a group of activists, artists, educators, and engineers focused on using immersive technology to highlight the narratives of the oppressed. In our campaign to knock Columbus off his pedestal, we engaged in a visually provocative form of activism. We created an augmented reality installation on the true story of Christopher Columbus and used it to host teach-ins in Columbus Circle and Times Square. Many see the controversy around the statue as tension between the Italian American community and the indigenous community. The reality is that most Black people are here in this country as a result of the atrocities that were kicked off by Christopher Columbus. So we ended up holding a slave auction in Union Square to tie him to the genesis of the transatlantic slave trade. I ran the New York City Marathon in chains to spread awareness to this issue. I was also arrested in Giant Stadium for hosting a slavery enactment at their football team's home opener. We gave it everything that we had. But in the end, New York City decided to keep the statue, and New York State unanimously voted to make it a landmark. The news was devastating, but it opened up another door. We realized that with augmented reality, you don't need permission from the government to put up a monument or to make a statement. You can just do it. So New York City right now currently has more than 150 statues of men and 6 of women, and currently acknowledges slaveholders in public spaces as well. So we decided, why not just put up a bunch of AR monuments of women and people of color throughout the city? Typically, monuments are created to commemorate the achievements of the deceased. But with augmented reality, we can rewrite the rules. We started with sports. Colin Kaepernick. He was the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, and he wanted to use his platform to highlight the injustice of systemic racism. So he consulted a Green Beret to find out the most respectful way to do this, and he decided to take a knee during the national anthem. He lost his contract with the 49ers. He was blackballed by every NFL owner. He was criticized by millions, and even the President of the United States decided to insult him. It may be decades before Colin Kaepernick is adequately respected for his courage. So our team decided to do this. Now, anyone that walks by Trump Tower can see Colin Kaepernick take a knee in augmented reality, and there's nothing they can do about it. Representation matters. Serena Williams proved to the world that a Black girl from Compton can dominate a sport that's traditionally played at exclusive country clubs. Let's celebrate her now. Jackie Robinson, he broke the color barrier and empowered many Black athletes to play in Major League Baseball. We're going to take this monument of him and put it in Ebbets Field so that anyone can see him swing for the fences in Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. With augmented reality, we have the power to tell stories in public spaces that need to be told. The achievements of people like Frida Kahlo, Audre Lorde, Toussaint Louverture, Madam C.J. Walker, this should be common knowledge. Our vision is a Pokemon Go for a contextualized history. Augmented reality can also be used as a tool to support organizations that are fighting against systemic oppression. In 2019, we will release our free smartphone app with augmented reality monuments and content. You can take your smartphone and hold it over any $1 bill and see a scene in augmented reality that illustrates the injustice of cash bail. You can then click on the screen and be directed to the donation page of the Bail Project, a fund that raises money for people who cannot afford bail. With augmented reality, we, the people, have the power to highlight the narratives of the oppressed when institutions refuse to do so. We can use this tool to highlight the systemic implications of erasing someone's history. And more concretely, we can use this technology as a way to support initiatives that are fighting against systemic racism. With AR, we have the power to reimagine a world that prioritizes justice over oppression. Thank you.
You know the bed feels warmer, sleeping here alone. You know I dream in color and do the things I want. You think you got the best of me, think you've had the last laugh, bet you think that everything good is gone. Think you left me broken down, think that I'll come running back. Baby, you don't know me 'cause you're dead wrong. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. What doesn't kill you makes a fighter. Footsteps even lighter. Doesn't mean I'm over 'cause you're gone. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stronger. Just me, myself, and I. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. You heard that I was starting over with someone new. They told you I was moving on over you. You didn't think that I'd come back swinging. You tried to break me, but you see what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. What doesn't kill you makes a fighter. Footsteps even lighter. Doesn't mean I'm over 'cause you're gone. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stronger. Just me, myself, and I. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. Thanks to you, I got a new thing started. Thanks to you, I'm not the broken hearted. Thanks to you, I'm finally thinking about me. You know, in the end, the day you left was just my beginning. In the end, what doesn't kill you makes